Welcome back to Nutrition Science Bites. Gee, a week goes fast, Ilyse.
So fast, Claire. So fast.
I think for me at the moment it's so busy because it's like every day it's someone in my extended family's birthday. It seems. It feels like that anyway.
Well, and it was No Money, No Time's birthday last month. We turned 6. And congratulations, Nutrition Science Bites turned 1 last month too.
That's amazing. I think that's an amazing milestone.
That
It
has
seems
gone
to have
super
gone
fast, hasn't
fast.
it? Super
Mm,
fast.
mm.
So,
I remember as a kid where 1 year like seemed forever, but the older you get, the faster they seem to go.
there is a saying, and as a parent, I really live by it. The days are long, but the years are short.
Yeah, absolutely. My mother-in-law always says that. And, she used to try and help us feel better when we had the sleepless nights with babies. But
Mm.
anyway, all of these events made me think about, well, what is the relationship between nutrition and healthy aging? And I saw this most amazing article, Ilyse, and it was called exactly that. I'm going to read it to you.
Okay.
Optimal dietary patterns for healthy aging. But what I love about this study is, first of all, it's huge. Like they've got more than 100,000 adults. It is from the US. Some people will have heard of the Nurses' Health Study and the Health Professionals Follow-Up Study. And this is where they've taken people who were nurses
Mm-hmm.
or people who were any kind of health professionals. They were mostly male, and they followed them up for a very long time. In this case, it's 30 years. And they've watched them, these cohorts, to see what do they do and what happens to them. And you might go, oh, that's a bit mean. But it can be pretty big deal to get someone to sign up for a study for the whole
Absolutely.
of their life. And that's why they picked nurses and health professionals, because they'd understand they're doing it for the greater good.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so in this one, Ilyse, I'm going to tell you what they monitored them for, because they wanted to know what what did the people eat who stayed free of any disease up until they were 70. So they had to remain free of chronic disease. They stayed cognitively well. So this basically means they didn't get a dementia related condition,
Yeah.
and both their physical and their mental health stayed really good. So no chronic diseases. So that means they didn't have heart disease, they didn't have diabetes, they didn't develop a cancer. So the first thing it's already telling you is that they're actually probably pretty lucky in terms of their genetics. They had
Yeah,
good genetics,
absolutely.
but
Does arthritis
because
and that fall into those sort of categories?
yeah, it would have been like predominantly
Yeah.
osteoarthritis, which is the most common
Mm-hmm.
by the time you get to age 70. Anyway, so they did come up with some predictable dietary pattern results, but they came up with some unusual as well. And what I really like in this is they realize that people can assess the healthiness of dietary patterns by a number of different methods. They're called diet quality indexes, and we've got one on No Money, No Time. It's the healthy eating quiz. It's
Mm-hmm.
a diet quality index. The healthy eating quiz measures whether or not you eat like the Australian dietary guidelines. So they used a whole range of these, and then they also looked at all of those aspects of healthy aging. So healthy aging, intact cognitive function, intact physical function, intact medical conditions, free of the chronic diseases, and you live till you're at least 70. And what I like is they made it super easy to interpret the results. They used red and green traffic lights.
Perfect.
So, can I tell you of all of those conditions, what was the greenest? Which, because I think it's super, super interesting.
Okay, go.
And it's a little bit different to what I would have predicted. That's why I'm going to make you listen to me.
Right.
So, the two factors that had the most green across all of those domains was actually unsaturated fatty acids.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm surprised. I thought it would have been vegetables. Wrong, wrong, wrong. Vegetables is green, but the greenest across those range of domains was that you added unsaturated fatty acids. Now, my brain, for all the listeners, immediately goes, well, that tells me that they weren't specifically on a super low fat diet, but they were using some types of oils. Now, unsaturated fatty acid dominant oils is things like olive oil, canola oil, and soybean oil.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a big deal. And then also polyunsaturated fatty acid intake. They had a higher polyunsaturated fatty acid intake, and that spills out then to most of the other cooking oils like sunflower and safflower. So I was surprised about that. But there's lots and lots of green for things like whole grains, fruit. Fruit is even a little bit more greener than vegetables. Nuts, legumes, dark yellow vegetables. Let's give a shout out to what they are, because in Australia, our darkest yellow vegetable, in fact, is pumpkin.
Mm.
But it's also things like sweet potato and carrots, of course. In America, their darkest yellow vegetable would have been carrots. And then things like berries and whole grains as well. And of course, I did say vegetables, didn't I?
Yeah.
So, yeah, so what that tells me is that oils come from plants. All of the foods in the green category is a big range of plant type foods. So there's the number one message: eat more plants.
What does Dr. Carr say?
I don't know. What about plants?
Says
Something about plants.
eat more, eat less, more. We'll have to look that up because it's a well-known saying. So
Okay. All right then. Well,
mostly plants. Eat a little. Mostly plants. Something else.
okay.
Insert here.
Well, Professor Clare also says eat more plants and a bigger variety. And I'm so happy about that, because that is exactly the goal of the healthy eating quiz. And when you fill it in, we ask you then to well, you've already signed up, but
Yep.
to come and set some goals, and we provide that practical support and all the recipes and all the resources. Okay, so Ilyse,
Mm-hmm.
I told you that big table also had the red traffic lights on it. So do you want to know what the reddest of the red were?
What's the reddest of the red?
Well, the absolute reddest is for a type of fat again, but it's called trans fats. Now, in Australia, the way we produce our margarines, for example, it's designed to keep the trans fats extremely low. When you try and turn a liquid oil into a solid, they pump hydrogen into it. It's called hydrogenation. It just
Okay.
means
Yep.
pumping hydrogen in it, and that makes it become a solid. But the way they used to do that in America, as a byproduct, they produce this type of fat called trans, and it actually acts like a saturated fat in your blood. So what that means is saturated fats, when they travel around in your blood, they like to land on artery walls and make them solid, make
Right.
them
Okay.
really hard. And that's the beginning of the process of atherosclerosis. So on food labels, trans fats, even though they're technically polyunsaturated, which means that they still have some double bonds, just complex chemistry, they get counted as though they're a saturated fat. A saturated fat has no double bonds. The way you can think of a double bond, it's kind of like, could you still shake someone's hands? Or are you carrying so many parcels that there's no way you could shake hands with someone? So a trans fat, technically, it's got double bonds, meaning it could still shake hands, but it can't, because like it's facing the wrong way. It's got no idea someone wants to shake its hand, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
That's a rough analogy. So in Australia, the good news is trans fats are extremely low in our food supply, but if they're there, they'll be on the food label. So have a look at your margarines, because they will actually be mentioned there. But our
As
food
trans
supply is low.
fats?
Yes, saturated plus trans get grouped together
Right. Okay.
because they act in your body like saturated fat.
Yep.
So we don't have to worry about that, but we do have to worry about some of the other red things in this list.
Mm-hmm.
So the reddest is total meat intake, and that's red meat plus processed meat.
Yep.
And what's interesting is when they separate them out, they're both exactly the same in terms of color, and sodium is also red.
Yeah. Okay.
Now, the reason why sodium is red, is one, is it's added to a lot of processed foods. And most of our sodium intake in Australia, well, not most of it, but a lot of sodium intake, you don't even realize you're eating food that's quite salty
Yeah.
because it's also got sugar added into it. So in Australia, in order to reduce your salt intake, and salt is made up of sodium and chloride, in order to reduce your intake, you actually do need to look at food labels and you do need to line up the products and go, oh, look, this one looks exactly the same as that, but it's got half the amount of sodium.
Yeah.
So a quick way of doing that is if both products had health stars, the one that had more health stars would actually have a lower sodium intake. We also do get sodium from things like bread and the margarines. So 1 week, when you decide you're going to take an extra 10 minutes at doing your shopping, look at your usual type of bread and compare it to other breads around it. Look at your margarine spread and compare to others around and see if you can select one that has less sodium. Again, a shortcut way of doing it is it would have more health stars compared to the other products. So the other things that get red in there is actually margarine, not surprising because, again, we've already said it's probably going to have more sodium and it may have some trans fats or may not. But butter, and when they're grouped together, is in there. Even unprocessed red meat, saturated fatty acids and trans fats, miscellaneous animal-based products, added sugar, and fruit juices grouped together, French fries, and what else is on there? Oh, even low energy beverages like diet drinks.
Okay.
You know why I think diet drinks is on that list? Is because a big place for drinking diet drinks is in fast food
Yeah. Yep.
restaurants. So, and sometimes people sort of make that the one concession is
I'll
go,
have a
well,
large Big Mac meal with a Coke Zero.
and upsize me
Yep.
because it's only extra 50
That's
cents.
right.
Yeah. So the bottom line is, though, that these optimal dietary patterns for healthy aging, cognitive function, physical function, mental health, chronic disease, and even living to 70 is all the dietary patterns that we promote on No Money, No Time. So, come on down, I'm making that again. Now, there was one anomaly in that optimal dietary patterns study, and I went, oh, that's so interesting. And I'm going to tell you, I'd already thought of the reason before the researchers explained. There was an anomaly for snacks and some fast foods. And they explained that by if you have more social connection and you're going out with friends more, that there's a protective effect for living longer and healthier.
Yeah.
And I thought, yeah, actually, that really makes sense. That really makes sense. So then I went looking, what does the research say about loneliness? And it's if you're super lonely and super socially isolated, it doesn't bode well for living a longer, healthier life. So I think we've got a little challenge on our hands here for people, and that's to look out for people who might be lonely or might be isolated. Like we had an elderly gentleman in our street, and all the years that he was alive, all the neighbours, when we used to just pop in, leave a meal, and like to help him out until he eventually went into a nursing home. But I think that's so important. And it's really a challenge for people who aren't yet old to think about other people who they might be able to support. And, we all go through that life stage. You mightn't be there yet, but, you still got kids dependent. All of your parents are elderly and need help with meals, and we all do what we can to help them.
Sandwich generation, I think they call that.
Yeah, you're sandwich. You're so busy. And it's really, really wonderful when other people actually drop them in a meal.
Yep.
Takes a little bit of pressure off.
Yep.
My mother-in-law is now 95, and she's the only family member we have left in that age group. But in the block of units she lives in, the neighbours invite her in for meals. Lots of people drop her in a meal, And it's just so wonderful for our extended family
Yeah.
that the neighbours are also looking out for her, because everyone is really busy and dropping in lots, but they're there on the ground, so we really value that. So thank you to all you wonderful
Yes.
people
Yeah.
who are helping all of our elderly parents out.
So it'd be interesting to see if things change, because I can see a giant shift of that uh, the generation that's near retirement and retiring, that are moving into these lifestyle villages. Now, my parents are in one; they've been in one for 10 years, and I can tell you it has done wonders for their social lives. Um, I initially thought it was a terrible idea selling the family home and moving into one of these complexes, but they have people surrounded, like, all around them. So there's
So they're
people to
not
they're
lonely.
not lonely. They're not lonely. And if someone does lose their partner, then there's so many people around them to keep checking in and keep them busy and keep them going and doing things. They share meals together once a week at least. They have
Sounds
activities on the
fantastic, doesn't it?
weekend. Oh, absolutely. I can't. Yep. No, I can wait to inherit that. I don't want that to happen, but do you know what I mean? Like it's
Yeah.
a
Yeah,
yeah.
that's really great. And that makes me think, Ilyse, about the other categories of studies that have shown that they extend life.
Mm,
And it's called calorie restriction. Some people might have heard of that. So this is where, you work out what your energy requirements are
mhm.
to make you weight stable, and you eat less than that.
Yeah.
So the first thing that happens, of course, is that you lose weight, but eventually people come to an equilibrium where they're not continuing to lose weight,
Mm,
but their metabolic rate has slowed down to adjust that. And so I don't recommend long-term calorie restriction as a way to extend your life, because it's not extending your quality of life.
no. Would
And
that mean you're hungry all the time if you're calorie restricting?
well, the studies of long-term follow-up people say they kind of get used to it. They
Yeah.
kind of get used to living with that feeling, and I suppose you must learn to ignore it, or it just becomes a background.
Mm,
But why I wanted to shout it out is they tend to live more hermit, less social lives,
yeah.
because you can't really go to social functions or,
Mm,
be sharing lots of
yeah.
food on a regular basis. So we're plugging for go for social interaction
Yep.
rather than long-term calorie restriction.
Yep.
But the other thing I wanted to tell you, this is some other research that keeps popping up in different, studies that I follow, and this is, why is it that some of these plant-based dietary patterns just dominate? It's kind of the um, almost the opposite end of the pole from highly processed convenience foods.
Mm,
So the plant-based foods, and I think we forget about whole grains being plants, and we forget about healthy oils actually being plants, and I think we forget about nuts being plants. I
yeah.
think we mostly just think about vegetables and fruit as
Yeah.
plants, but
Yeah.
it's all these other things. Well, the bright colors contain things called carotenoids. They show up when they get beyond whole foods into what are the bioactive components of foods that are contributing to health and well-being.
Mhm.
There's this other group of things called phytonutrients or plant chemicals. They're, they they help to regulate or manage a lot of processes related to looking after your DNA,
Yeah.
looking after your blood sugars, and also looking after some of the cancer pathways.
Mhm.
Because in the early stages of cancer pathways, your body is trying to clean up any cell damage that could lead to cancer. But there's a couple of interesting things. One particular interested food I'm going to give a shout out, because it was one of my dad's favorite foods,
Oh,
is,
I know this.
yes, in your DNA, on the ends of DNA, you have special protective things. They're called telomeres. Now, a telomere is kind of like what a champagne cork is to a bottle of champagne.
Mhm.
It's under a bit of pressure, but it's protecting the champagne and keeping the bubbles and keeping it,
Okay.
fizzy. So a telomere is protecting your DNA to try and stop it from being damaged
Mhm.
and preserve it for when it's ready to be replicated. Well, there's a particular amino acid called ergothioneine that helps with protecting your telomeres. And when I found the study that had been done in humans to show that ergothioneine also helps with human telomeres, because I'd seen one in animals,
Yeah.
I went, yes, Dad, you were right.
And
He loved
I was going to say, is it
mushrooms.
mushrooms? It's mushrooms, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. And ergothioneine is in mushrooms. And I thought, well, that probably explains why there's some of these cohort studies that have shown that mushrooms are also associated with a lower risk of developing particular cancers
Oh.
because they're actually protecting your DNA. So eat more mushrooms, and I want to finish on that. But if you go, oh no, she said mushrooms, and I hate mushrooms, well, ergothioneine, it's also in some of the really dark beans, so red kidney beans and black beans. So there we go. And good news is, the beans anyway are plants. Like I know mushrooms aren't a plant, but we tend to lump them in with the vegetable family.
What'd you say? Mushrooms aren't. Oh, because they're
No, they're more
fungi.
like they're a fungi. They're a fungi, but we lump them in with
Yeah.
vegetables because in culinary terms, we eat them in the same way that we would eat a vegetable. So,
Okay.
but if you go, no way, there's no way I'm eating mushrooms. Well, black
Oh, that's what
beans,
my children say, but they eat mushrooms all the time because I chop them up very finely. And you know what? I think people think they don't like mushrooms. I think that they might look at it and go, that's not for me. And they probably don't like the texture if it's quite large and chunky. But if you
yeah,
chop them up and put them in bolognese and other risotto dishes, you don't even know
you
they're
don't even
there.
know. Well, the other place they're really nice in. You know how we've got the sausage roll recipe?
Oh, yes. Yep.
And we've got mince there, but that's another variation. Like if
Yeah.
you were wanting to make them,
Mm,
those sausage rolls, totally vegetarian,
it is.
if you dice up your mushrooms with the onion as fine as you possibly
Yeah.
can be, and then you keep those black beans or those red kidney beans in there, you'll need to add a little bit more tomato paste to help it
Yeah.
bind, then you can actually make yourself some really delicious phyllo
Oh.
pastry little sausage rolls that
I
are
have
yum, yum,
been
yum.
I have been buying, usually I buy vegetables that are like in full, aren't prepped at all because it's often cheaper. But I have been buying the tubs of pre-chopped mushrooms because it's just easier to chuck them in without thinking. And
They're often on special.
they're often on special, but it's often the same price as, so the container is the same size, but when the mushroom is full, you're not getting the same amount of weight as
Right.
when they're chopped up. So I'm finding that the chopped up mushroom is actually more economical to buy it that way, and it's easier for me just to like
To
finely
do
chop
it.
further. So we we ask our special guests for recipes sometimes. Can I pretend I'm a special guest this week?
You
And
can if you've got a recipe to give us, and you're a special guest every
ah,
week,
thanks,
Ilyse.
Claire. That makes me feel very special. Actually, I made a mushroom soup a couple of weeks ago, and it was delicious. So maybe we might share that.
I saw
You
that on
did,
our closed
yeah,
Facebook group,
yep.
everyone. So that's another reason to join the closed Facebook group because I then made that. And
How
this
good
is
was it?
it's so yummy. And like my husband's actually not that keen on the mushroom soup, and I said, "Do not worry,
Mm-hmm.
leave it for me
You don't
because
have
I
to. You don't have to. And what other
and I had
lesson
it
did
for
you learn
lunch.
that week,
I got
Claire?
it, all of it.
And what did you learn?
I can't remember. What did
The
I learn?
microwave remembers. What happened?
No, can't remember. Oh, yes, I actually exploded in the microwave and then I had to clean the microwave. That's right. Do not walk away
No.
if you've never ever heated a particular product up in the microwave before. Stand there and watch
You
because it might be less than what you think.
you didn't get to enjoy the same quantity, did you?
No,
No.
no, no. And then I was punished by having to clean out the
Yes.
microwave
So,
as well.
all right.
Yeah. So, Ilyse, I think there are a couple of things, like from the topic today, like we've talked about nutrition and healthy aging,
Yeah.
staying free of disease, but we have actually also talked about loneliness and cooking for
Yeah.
one.
Yep.
And the resource we've got on No Money, No Time, that was in response to someone through our closed Facebook group, a gentleman who said, any chance we could do something for him to make it easier because he was learning how to cook
Mm-hmm.
basically. So we'll put a link to that resource
Yeah.
in there. And I think we're giving a shout out to maybe think about people who are lonely and looking at how to include them or encourage them or help them find groups or dropping in a message or even inviting them in for a meal.
Yeah. Yep. Great advice once again.
Okay. Yeah.
Perfect. All right.
Take care.
Thanks. You too. Catch you soon. Bye.